The North American Rockwell OV-10 Bronco was a tough, rugged, well-armed aircraft that could take a beating and get the job done. Conceived in a backyard by two Marine friends as a particular aircraft for counter-insurgency combat, the Bronco could carry up to 3 tons of ammunition, several high-caliber M60 machine guns, rockets, and even a gun pod to fight off its enemies. The small twin-turboprop light attack and observation aircraft may not have looked like a seasoned fighter. Still, U.S. Marine Corps observation squadrons, the Navy's Black Ponies, and the Air Force Tactical Air Support Squadron all took advantage of its combat versatility during the Vietnam War. And yet the legendary OV-10 Broncos had plenty more to offer. Decades after the Vietnam War ended, the unwavering aircraft would get to see more destructive action against the relentless Middle East. Rise of communism. In the early 1960s, the Cold War reached new heights when U.S. military intelligence discovered that the Russians had landed intercontinental ballistic missiles on Cuban soil. U.S. President John F. Kennedy wanted to avoid a global nuclear conflict at all costs. Instead of sending American personnel to clear out Cuba's Prime Minister Fidel Castro and his communist allies, he approved the training of local militias by the CIA to do so. When the U.S.-funded Bay of Pigs invasion failed in April 1961, it solidified Cuba's relationship with the Soviet Union and broadened their division with the U.S. The incident set the stage for the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, which came close to starting a nuclear war. The spread of communism inevitably became one of Kennedy's primary concerns. In Asia, the Vietnamese government struggled to bring peace against the communist guerrillas trained by the Chinese. Although the U.S. government had been sending advisors to train the government's military, their efforts were futile. War was imminent, and Kennedy was pressed by high-ranking officials to enact military action. Humble beginnings. Neighbors and close friends U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel K.P. Rice and retired Marine W.H. Beckett began working on an informal collaboration to develop a new type of aircraft that would be suitable for the upcoming Vietnam War. Both men had met years before at the Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake in California and used a backyard to develop their prototype. Their original concept was to create a rugged and simple close-air aircraft that could support ground troop operations. They set out to build an aircraft that would be faster than Army helicopters while also being able to assist infantry units advancing towards enemy lines. Colonel Rice also wanted the aircraft to be as maneuverable as the legendary World War II Sikorsky R-4 helicopter. The R-4 first saw action in Burma in 1944, becoming the world's first combat helicopter. The Marines envisioned a prototype that could operate from improvised airbases, using roads as runways. It had to have short takeoff and landing capabilities for limited areas with little clearance, such as jungles. For its intended role as a support aircraft, the prototype's speed would vary from very slow to medium subsonic. This pace would also allow its loiter or flight time to be much longer than that of a jet. Its turboprop engines would be the key to better performance. When it came to artillery, Rice and Beckett determined that all weapons had to be placed in the center line to favor a more precise aim. But they lacked high-caliber weapons to test their ideas, so they had to wait and see how feasible their idea was. After the Marines enthusiastically finished a fiberglass prototype and prepared a detailed informal pamphlet, Beckett went to work at aerospace manufacturer North American Aviation to sell them their unique project. In his own book, The OV-10 Story, Innovation versus the System, Rice described the fundamentals of the aircraft. Quote, "The military definition of STOL allows takeoff and landing in most of the areas in which limited war might be fought. In addition, the airplane was designed to use roads so that operation would even be possible in jungle areas where clearings are few and far between. As a result, the wingspan was to be limited to 20 feet, and a heavy landing trail arm type landing gear with a tread of 6.5 feet was provided for operation from roads." North American Aviation saw potential in the concept and bought the project in early 1963. They were about to make history. Light armed reconnaissance aircraft. At the end of 1963, the Pentagon issued a requirement for a tri-service or joint service specification for a light armed reconnaissance aircraft, also known as LARA. Like K.P. Rice and W.H. Beckett had envisioned, the LARA specifications called for the development of a jungle-fighting light attack and observation aircraft for the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Army. Warplanes such as the Cessna Bird Dog and the Skymaster were becoming obsolete, while American military support for the South Vietnamese was strengthening. Additional support was required for coordinated ground operations with infantry units in the Asian tropic. The Pentagon specifications also called for a twin-engine, two-man light aircraft that could carry 2,400 pounds, including 5 paratroopers or stretchers. The aircraft also needed to perform as an amphibian and reach an approximate speed of 350 miles per hour. Regarding armament, the Laura had to be equipped with 4 7.62mm M60 machine guns with 500 ammunition each and a gun pod with a cannon. North American Aviation decided to enroll Rice and Beckett's homemade aircraft in the competition. The project prevailed, and the company got the contract in 1964. The aircraft earned its OV-10 Bronco name because of its close air support role and its cheaper operational usage when compared to jets and other helicopters such as the UH-1 Huey and the Bell AH-1 Cobra. After a series of modifications, the OV-10 ended up being larger than its original concept, but it kept its unique look. North American Aviation incorporated a cargo and central nacelle for pilots, and twin booms with 275 horsepower Garrett T-76 turboprop engines. The aircraft supported STOLs, or short takeoff and landings, and was able to fly for 5 hours with external fuel tanks. The cockpit had outstanding visibility for the tandem pilots and was equipped with ejection seats. The stub wings also allowed for better flight performance that would help in its close air support role. The modifications enabled the aircraft to carry armament on its centerline, fuselage, and stub wings. 4 M60 machine guns, a gun pod with white phosphorus, and 4 rockets would become the standard weapons for Vietnam War-era aircraft. Service in Vietnam. The OV-10 Bronco was first used by the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. The aircraft became part of 2 observation squadrons from 1968 to 1971, and the Marines flew more than 38,000 combat hours aboard the Broncos. Under the U.S. Air Force, the OV-10s were used for Operation Ranch Hand, which was part of the chemical warfare program of Operation Trail Dust. The Broncos were used for strike direction and were later attached to several South Vietnamese tactical air support squadrons. In 1971, the Broncos were equipped with pave-spot target laser designator pods and night periscopes to carry on operations throughout the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Cooperating with F-4 Phantoms, the Broncos would illuminate targets with their laser pods to support the Phantoms' laser-guided bombs launch. The Light Attack Squadron 4, better known as the Black Ponies, was formed in January 1969 to support Marines, riverboats, Special Forces, and Navy SEALs operating behind enemy lines. They cooperated with riverboat units as part of the HAL-3 Sea Wolves, a volunteer squadron created to support the Mobile Riverine Forces in the Mekong Delta region of southwestern Vietnam. During patrols, the Black Ponies used their OV-10s to provide air cover, enemy spotting, and scramble alerts for riverboats. With its M60 machine guns and rockets, they would often take down enemies located in areas where riverboats had no reach. The U.S. Navy used the OV-10 Broncos with great effectiveness during the Vietnam War. Out of 157 OV-10s employed by the U.S. Air Force, 64 were lost. After the war ended, the Broncos were decommissioned. A resurgence. When U.S. forces withdrew from Vietnam in 1975, many OV-10 Broncos were sold to Colombia, Germany, Indonesia, Morocco, the Philippines, and other countries, where they were used as military and civilian aircraft. In 1990, the old rugged Broncos took to the skies once more to participate in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm as part of the Gulf War in the Middle East. The Broncos were tasked with spotting enemy infantry, vehicles, and artillery for coalition forces. By the time the campaign ended, the Broncos had flown over 290 sorties and helped destroy 50 tanks, 100 vehicles, and 50 artillery emplacements. The last Broncos were retired from American service in 1995, but 2 decades later, they would be put to task once again. In 2015, NASA restored 2 Broncos and upgraded them with new communications equipment, black boxes, and a 70mm rocket with a laser seeker. The aircraft was sent to Iraq to target ISIS terrorists. The Broncos flew around 130 sorties during the course of 80 days, spreading fear amongst enemy forces. Although the military did not reveal specific details on the Broncos' involvement, Central Command has claimed that they were an essential part in the success of Operation Inherent Resolve, the U.S. plan for eliminating the Islamic threat from Iraq and Syria. Experts have suggested that the peculiar aircraft were likely used in conjunction with Special Operations Forces working behind enemy lines or hunting down specific targets. The U.S. Air Force later stated that it has not discarded the possibility of future battle operations using the old Broncos and are willing to, quote, determine if this is a valid concept that would be effective in the current battle space. This might not be the last time that we see the ever-reliable Broncos in action.